So what I want to do, because a lot of people also have been, we've been going over some things, just dealing with some of the basics, right? So some people, this may be too basic, but I just want to kind of start off that this is Virtualbox. All right, so this is Virtualbox. This is our virtual machine of choice. You can use VMware Player, VMware Workstation. You can have EXI servers, KVM, whatever the case may be, right? But this is that virtual platform that you can use to start understanding pen testing tools. So this is Kali Linux. It already has a collection of tools already configured. So all you have to do is pretty much um, enable it or click on the link, and we'll look at that in a second. But first, Kali Linux has updated their website, and so I'm going to go to virtual machines, and what I'm going to do, I'm going to download the 64-bit version of Virtualbox. All right, so 3.8 gigs. I'm going to download it. I'm going to save it, and it's saying it as an OVA. All right, so this is something that we've kind of talked about in the past. That means it's already pre-configured. I just have to import the OVA into Virtualbox. Or if I download the VMware, it would be the VMware one. Okay, so the OVAs already kind of formatted. They're already like appliances, already shaped, but they're pre-configured. So you don't have the flexibility of quickly configuring the settings for it because it's already there, right? You can tweak them, but we'll see when we download it. So it's already downloading. It's going to take a minute, but I already have it downloaded. Okay, so when I go back to VirtualBox, all I have to do is basically go to File, and I'm going to do Import Appliance. When I import the appliance, I'm just going to where my downloads is at. Okay, I click on my downloads and open, and then it'll start importing. I already have it done, so we're not going to do that piece of it. And I'm going to cancel my download. Okay, so VirtualBox is already set up. Kali Linux already imported into it once I did the import the appliance. Okay, so now the only thing I have to do is click on it to start it. Okay, now typically I go to View and I click on Virtual Screen, and I'll just make it 200. Okay, that way when it pops up, it'll be expansive on my screen. Sometimes you may get an error message depending upon the version of VirtualBox. I'm sorry, Kali Linux, or even VirtualBox, or any VM. Sometimes you'll get an error message dealing with the USB because it's a USB 2.0, but it's a USB 1 for the virtual machine. So that's something to be cognitive of. I'm going to type in Kali. And Kali for the password, it used to be root and Tor. So now this is my Kali Linux. Okay. So now I need to figure, well, I have a machine that has my security hacker tools on it, but now I need something to hack. Now I can download another VM in Linux, and that could be my VM of choice. So Nick just posted something about the extension pack. That's a good note. Mine was already installed, so I didn't have to actually go through and do that. But with extension patch, you can copy and paste from your virtual machine to your actual desktop as well. So those are some of the things that you can actually do.
If I can hop in for 2 seconds,
Yep,
the
go
reason
ahead.
I called out the extension pack, if you are downloading this onto your company provided computer, just be very, very wary of doing it. Oracle has become very, very nasty at retaining license costs now. So if they catch you, and I don't know if it's just with the regular VirtualBox download, I know for sure it's with the extension pack because it enables Virtualbox pretty much into a full actual usable device. But they will come back, and if you're on a company devised laptop, they will call out your host name. They'll call out the IP address that you downloaded and using it from, and they will find someone in your company that responds, and it will more than likely come back to you to remove it. And they will force you or your company to pay for it in an enterprise level. So just be aware of that.
Oh wow. Hey, Otha, what'd you think about Parrot OS, man?
You know, I never used it.
Okay.
So I don't have anything bad or anything good to say about it. I've heard about it, and I think you've talked about it more than I have. But um, I'm just so used to using Kali Linux from when it was
Yeah.
backtracked that I'm
Right.
just used to
Yeah.
using it. Now,
Yeah.
the question that I have for those individuals that have used Parrot, I know with Kali Linux it moved from using Python to Ruby. Does Parrot use um, Python when it's on the back end when it's doing its stuff? Or maybe that was for
So,
Metasploit. I may be having a senior moment. I
so
don't
man,
know.
what I've been noticing, man. So I watched a pen tester guy from Medicare Medicaid. A guy, he's one of these pen test guys. He was actually pretty good, but he talked about not using any tools. He said he pretty much what they call live off the land. In other words, he said use PowerShell because you can, it helps not being detected. And then most of the time, I talk to people, they use Kali Linux, but what they'll do is they'll install Ubuntu and then just install the tools they need too. But to be honest, if I was trying to learn, I would just use Kali too, because then you force installing tools, trying to update packages and all that stuff, and then that's just a waste of time at the end of the day. But I see a lot of guys
Right.
once they get deep into it, they start just installing the tools from Kali on like a Ubuntu box. But
And you bring up a good point. Some individuals do just install their tools because of Kali Linux. There may be tools that you don't use. So it just kind of depends upon your preference, right? I haven't done an analysis on which ones has more tools because I don't
yeah,
even use all the tools in Kali Linux, but
right,
the core stuff I know they're going to have. They're going to have the Metasploit, right? And you make a good
right,
point. You do want to get to the point where you live off the land, right? So maybe not necessarily use Metasploit, particularly if those going for the OSCP, because you have to kind of live off the land, and everyone should be learning PowerShell, right? And I made a reference to the Python and Ruby. That was for the Metasploit framework that actually changed, right? So this is Kali Linux, right? And one of the things that we talked about was having that environment for you to test and play around with. So when you start looking at cybersecurity, and one of the security questions may be, well, what are the top 10 vulnerabilities that company needs to look out for? And to find those vulnerabilities is basically the Oauth Top 10, right? So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to put in Owasp, the Open Web Application Security Project, right? It's a nonprofit. You guys can read this on your own, but I'm going to do Oauth Top 10. Okay. So you'll get the top 10 vulnerabilities. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to click on this. I'm going to say view on project GitHub. So here's the wiki. So here you get to see the top 10 web applications, right? Um, injection, broken authentication, sensitive data exposure, and depending upon how you want to level up, you may try to know all 10. Or some people may just want to know the first three or the first five, right? But at least you need to know the first one, right? And then to be able to explain it, and then get to the point to understand how to prevent it. Okay. So I just clicked on 2017 injection A1, and it talks about what it is. It goes into detail. It gives example. It gives references. And the cool thing, it talks about how to prevent as well. Because as security professionals, sometimes we just want to hack stuff and we don't even care how to break it. But think about this: your billable hours. So my billable hours is I'm going to break it. I'm going to get paid. But my billable hours is I'm going to tell you how to fix it and get paid. So you get paid on the front end, on the back end. Okay. So that's something that I want you to think about. And then we're going to go to broken authentication and rinse and repeat, right? Exact same thing, how to prevent. It talks about it, give references, gives examples, and understand the example or attack scenarios, right? Because when you think about it, these applications that are in the cloud, they're still web-based. So the Oauth Top 10 still applies to them. So because it applies to them, you need to understand these attacks before you start trying to compromise the cloud itself, right? The cloud infrastructure. And we'll get to that, but we're just going to do these baby steps. Okay. So this is the Oauth top 10. You should at least know the top 5. Totally transparent, I don't. But if I was getting ready to go for an exam, not an exam, but a job interview, I will. Right. And what I mean by I don't know what's number 1, what's number 2, what's number 3, what's number 4, right? So you figure out your level of how you want to get that 30, 40, $50,000 question, right? To determine, okay, I want to be able to explain this in the amount of detail that I want to be able to explain it in. All right. So the second thing I want to talk about is I'm going to share with you this guy's there's another website. All right, so this guy, and he has a website called the Oauth testing checklist, right? So I'm not a big fan of going to people's websites and downloading Excel, Excel files, right? But there was someone else that used this guy, so I figured, he's okay. And but the interesting thing about it is when you want to start doing your pen testing on a web application, you're like, okay, where do you begin? I got the top 10, but what are the tools? What are the things that I need to use? So he breaks it down to different categories: information gathering, deployment management testing, right? Authorization testing, session management testing. So he breaks it down by categories, and we'll talk about a little bit later on what these categories mean. But he has a test name, he gives you a description, and then he gives you the tools to actually use. So this is very useful because if you want to, you're on an engagement and you don't know where to start, okay, just start at number 1 and then just go down a checklist. And this helps you keep track of what you're trying to do. And you can kind of present it as a deliverable to the customer because he may want to ask about the test pack, right? How did you do your testing? So you're going to charge him for testing. You're going to charge him for telling him how to fix the things you tested. And then you're going to charge him again for the test packet, right? So now you get paid 3 times. And so this is pretty thorough. So I wanted to share this with you guys. When I do the video, edit it, I will when I post it on YouTube, I will share the links and everything as well. Okay. Any questions so far? Okay. So Let's continue.
I had a question, Otha, right before you continue.
Yep, go ahead, Torrin.
So pen tester's job. You said three things that stand out basically for what the job is like and how to make money doing it once you get good at it. Charge for testing, charge for what's breakable, how to fix that, and what was the last thing you said? I know you're recording this, but I just wanted to ask again.
Right, no. The test case,
Mm-hmm.
right? And the reason why I said the test case because even not even dealing with pen testing, that when you deploy something, like if I'm deploying routers and switches, I need test cases to make sure it's working. Or if I'm deploying a firewall and IDS, there should be some sort of test case or testing done, right?
Mm-hmm.
And there's a whole life cycle of testing. And I haven't done testing in a while to that degree, but I was on a testing team and we had the operational, we have functional testing. And there's a few others to have just to make sure something is working the way it should work, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we had test cases that we had to come in and we had to check off, like this one says the result not started. We had to have a result, past issues, and then you have to document the actual issues for that particular test case, right? So when you are doing pen testing or just any job in general, you want to figure out, well, how do I monetize certain things? So I just want to kind of point out three things to have you think about to monetize about, okay, I'm going to do the actual web app pen testing, show you what's wrong. I'm going to tell you how to fix what's wrong. And then I'm going to share with you the test cases that I have. I'm going to charge you for it. And if you want me to train your employees, because now I'm going to tell you how to stop it, I'm going to train your employees also how to stop it. So I need money for that.
Sounds good. I just wanted to I just wanted to hear you say that again.
Yep.
Again, very good points.
Yeah, no, and that was a good question. So if there's something that anyone wants me to repeat, definitely let me know to repeat it.
Mm-hmm.
So now there is a testing guide out there as well. So let me so we're gonna go back and I'm gonna type in Oauth testing guide. So you see the always a stable version. 4.2 is the web hosted release, but then they also have PDFs of them as well. We're just gonna go to the web version, and I'm just gonna. You see the threat modeling, source code review. You have all this of the Oauth pen test before development begins. So they really put out what you should be doing. Information gathering, search engine reconnaissance. So it'll kind of walk you through what you're supposed to be doing. Here's some of the OSINT stuff. All right. So this is a good foundation to give you a good testing guide for information gathering for a particular website. Go back, fingerprint web server. Web server metafiles and information leak. All right. And as you see, it kind of goes with the information guide for this particular checklist. Right. So it empowers you. It gives you more verbiage to understand what you're trying to do and how you're trying to test for it. All right. So Owasp, we're going to use that as a framework to start doing our cloud pen testing on the web server that's actually hosted in the cloud. All right. So Owasp is that's the tool we're going to use. Now, what we're going to do, and this is something that I learned from Rick, is that when let me go back to my Kali Linux. So in my Virtualbox, right, I have a VM that I test with. But sometimes, I'm like, okay, I don't necessarily need another VM to test with, because this VM is I'm gonna go to settings. It has the base memory of 4 gigs. My storage, it takes, I think this is like 10 gigs or something, right? But what I want to do now, because we've been talking about Dockers, is let me install Dockers on my Kali Linux and let me test from that. So I don't necessarily need to take up hard drive space, right? Because I'm going to install Dockers inside my Kali Linux, and then I'm going to use that to actually run my test with. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to share another link. And this guy's just installing Docker on Kali Linux for 2021. Thorough doc. But basically, these commands are the only thing you need. So I'm going to go back to my Kali Linux. Open up the web browser, and I'm going to go to the exact same website. And what I'm going to do, open up a terminal window. And because of the way Kali Linux, when they changed over, I think it was in 2020, they stopped using the root and Tor. You had to start using sudo for the installation. So that's why it says sudo versus just apt-get. So I already updated my Kali Linux. And one of the interview questions would be, what is sudo? So typically it would be sudo apt-get update. And basically what I want to do is update the packages that are the package list that are in Kali Linux. I'm not going to do it because I already did it. It's going to ask me for, well, I'll do it anyway. It's going to do it anyway. And hopefully it's not going to take too long. And then after I do my update, I'm going to do an upgrade. I'm going to upgrade my Kali Linux. Okay. I won't do that for the simple fact that it takes a little while. So it's going about is doing his updates as far as where it's drawing the packages. So you see packages, content, packages, contents, right? And now it's done. And then what I would do is just do the upgrade. Okay. Since I already did it, I'm not going to do it. But now I want to install Docker. So I already installed it, but I wanted us to kind of walk through. So the cool thing about Linux is that I can string commands along, right? So basically, I'm using this command, update, and then after I update, then I want to install Docker, right? I'm just going to copy it. Go to my terminal, paste clipboard. Okay. So basically saying, look, it's already in. If it wasn't, you'll see something that looks like, I may not have the screenshot for it. Nope, they didn't have it. But that's the second command that you actually run to download and install your Docker. Once it installed, I want to install it. So I have a Docker, and now I need to put an application in it. So just like we put Kali Linux in the Virtualbox, I need to put something in application into Docker. So Docker is my virtual platform, just like Virtualbox is my virtual platform. So now I need to give it an application to run. And what I'm going to do is use Oauth Juice Shop. So we're already talking about the Oauth Top 10. So they have a vulnerable web application that you can actually use. So the one of choice, and we're going to do, and we'll just do it straight from Kali Links. I'm going to do Oauth Juice Shop. All right. So I want to use this guy. And this guy. Okay. So what I'm going to do, he has this thing going on with Dockers and this Oauth Juice Shop. And then this one is basically a workbook or a guide. So it talks about running vulnerabilities. It has different challenges. And then it also has the solutions to the challenges. Or you can Google Oauth Juice Box walkthroughs. All right. So there's multiple ways to skin a cat. I just use it because the guy that I'm watching videos and trying to learn from is actually using the same stuff. So I want to keep pace. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to my Kali Linux and this says sudo docker has the same guy, Juice Shop. So now I want to pull the application from him. I hit enter. And basically because it's already there, I'm good to go. Okay. So now I need to start it. So what I want to do is the commands again. Keep my fingers crossed on this live demo to make sure that nothing goes wrong. I ran through it earlier today just to make sure everything works. And it says server listening on port 3000. So when I initially did the command, I'm running my Docker on port 3000. So I'm running it locally on this Linux machine. And let's see what the IP address is. So I have this 172.17.0.1. So what I'm going to do now, copy selection, go into back to my browser, put HTTP, paste it in, and then I'm going to go to port 3000, colon 3000. So now my application is up and running. Oh, wow. So now I can just practice hacking. Now my Kali Linux is one IP address. My target is going to be 127.17.0.1. So now I can practice going through my Oauth Top 10 and not worry about somebody from a 3-letter agency knocking on my door. Okay? So this is a website that's vulnerable, has a bunch of stuff in it, and we're just going to kind of work through this stuff. Now, I think there's score. Okay. So each challenge of Oauth, they has like a little rank tool with a difficulty level. So you see 1 star. And then it says, you know, you have an interactive hacking tutorial for this particular challenge. All right, so some of them have that. Okay. So this is kind of just help you keep on track as far as what you're actually be doing, his broken access. Okay. So this is installing Kali Linux using the OVA, and then downloading Docker and now running that in your Kali Linux. So now in Kali Linux, for those not familiar, everything is broken down. You see the information gathering. So now you can start running particular tools against your website. So you have your website up and running. You have your Kali Linux up and running. And what we'll do, we'll kind of revisit Burp Sweep as well. Okay. Now, if you have any website, the first thing that I would do is always run Nmap and Nikto. Right, that's just kind of a thing that I always do, because they're going to go through. Nmap is going to show you what applications are running on that particular IP address based upon its ports. And Nikto is a kind of a poor man version of a scanner that will scan a particular website for you to find vulnerabilities associated with it. And Nikto also, I can't remember if there's another one called Sparta that I use as well. I don't even think that's still in Kali Linux. No. So any questions? You know, I want to stop here because I want to make sure that you guys understand this stuff. And this is what we're going to start doing, using this and going through. Now, I know there are some go-getters out there. And those go-getters aren't going to just wait on me until not even the 29th, because that's when we do our mock interviews. So basically the second week in September to review some of this stuff. I know there's 2 or 3 go-getters that's going to start running through these tutorials as well. All right. Now, we're in that job interview, and this is something that Al talks about. This is something that Rick and Nick have talked about was, you know what? If you go through one of these tutorials or you solve one of these Oauth Top 10, present on it. And when you present, we'll post it on YouTube, and then we'll put your name, you get all the credits. So when you are in that interview, you can always say, I did a YouTube video on this. You know, hey, check me out on YouTube. And they probably won't even finish asking you the question because you're going to show them your YouTube video. And I'm constantly seeing people who are hiring, asking for people that do presentations and formal things of that nature, because they want people that are able to talk to C-levels and senior managers and managers, right? So being able to present is key. So cut your teeth on presenting. You know, it's not going to always be the Nick, the Rick, the Al, the Vinay, Armando show or Otha, right? We want other people to get comfortable. And the more you present and get comfortable presenting, your flow gets a lot smoother and better in the interview. Okay? So, any questions so far?
I don't have a question. I have a comment.
Yep.
This
Comments,
came up today
feedback, suggestions, anything.
I was talking with my team today, and I just came back from vacation, believe it or not. And one of my teammates thought he'd let me down because 2 of the presentations he did kind of did not go well. So, and he goes, you know, you literally, and this is not me putting a feather in my hat. This actually has relevance, so just bear with me. But he goes, you always go through these things and you always have answers to their questions. I said, hey, you're only seeing me right now. You're not seeing me 3 years ago or the 3 years and probably the over 150 presentations I've given. I said, I did exactly what you're doing. I've said exactly what you just said to me. And I said, someone told me the exact same thing I'm about to tell you. And what I told him today was that get off the ground, stand back up, go back up the stairs and try and find a way to do it again. because the more you do, just like Otha was saying, the more you guys do these, guys and girls going to do these presentations, the easier it's going to become. And at a certain point, your brain just shuts off, and it's just like you're having a conversation with someone in front of you, even though it's either on video screen or you're in front of 100 or 1,000 people. It doesn't matter.
Yeah. And one of the things that you have to think about is the more confident and smoother and thorough and deft you are in that interview, the more you can ask for money, because we talked about embracing the stereotypes. And one of the stereotypes about IT people is they can't talk, right? And they're weird as hell, right? Those are the two stereotypes. So when you come in and you can talk, and we're all weird to a degree, so we probably can't stop that. But if you can talk and convey your thought in a very concise manner, then you're ahead of the curve of the next guy who came in and he was stammering and stuttering and couldn't convey his thought. So think about these things. Think about, how do you perfect your craft? Because it's difficult to. It's not necessarily difficult, but standing in front of a mirror practicing your presentation, or public speaking. People used to do that back in the day if you take a public speaking class, but that's kind of difficult, right? Being able to present in a form like this, where you have a PowerPoint presentation, you have a clicker, you have a microphone. Like last time I presented, I had technical problems, right? To be able to have that stuff and still kind of flow with it. Those are the things that will separate you from the rest of the pack, right? And then when I mean rest of the pack, as far as the type of salary that you want to get,